I would like to ask you just, a couple of other questions, maybe two.
No problem.
You address his relationship with his friend and the separation. And to me, where they haven't spoken and he called and tried to repair things.
Yeah.
It was really heart-moving. I felt, given his commitment to exploration, dialogue, and pursuit of truth, that the loss of such a close friend in terms of interaction, I know he's since passed on, must have been very difficult for Dr. Peterson.
Yes, so this is the scene with Bernie Schiff. Bernie, the longtime friend of Jordan's, he sort of took him under his wing. He was a professor emeritus at the University of Toronto up until recently, and he passed away, unfortunately. And at the time when Jordan was hired at the University of Toronto, this is when Bernie sort of took him under his wing and really kind of helped him get into the university in those early stages. And Bernie, a couple of years ago, wrote this article called, "I used to be Jordan Peterson's biggest supporter, and now I think he's dangerous." And yes, this is a very difficult article for Jordan to receive. In our film, this is the only time that Jordan speaks publicly with commentary about it. Other than that, he tweeted, I think, 2 or 3 tweets in response to it, but he's never spoken about it. He always declined those interviews. So I appreciated that he did speak to us about it. And we thought that because we did interview Bernie, because this article really did spread far and wide, and because we did interview Bernie, we thought it's only fair if we have Jordan responding to this as well. But when we watched the film with Jordan in August, once the film was done, I know that was in particular very difficult for him to watch, not only because of the contents of it, of these criticisms he received from a very good friend who he was never able to talk to about it, but then, then even the fact that Bernie has since passed away, it's now this conversation that can never take place. So
I didn't realize. Oh yeah, Bernie has passed away, right?
Yes, and so it's quite heavy to think about all of those levels.
Do you think that his response to the article had to do with the fact that his own daughter identifies as transgender? Was it his daughter?
Jordan certainly wondered that, and many people wonder that. When I talked to Bernie about that, he actually took offense to Jordan alluding to that being the reason why he wrote the article. I think that Bernie disagreed with Jordan fundamentally on a lot of his positions about Bill C-16, about his political positions and what he was campaigning for. I'm sure that Bernie's worldview and positions about politics in relationship to transgender people is informed by his daughter being transgender, because of course, he has a personal connection to it. So I guess I would say, I think it has some to do with it, but it's not the whole story. Like, I think he genuinely had a lot of disagreements with
well, I guess it's the same with what you were saying right at the beginning with maps of meaning and layers. They're all happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think for even people close to Jordan, there's also Will Cunningham, who's featured in the film, who's another friend and a fellow psychology professor. For a lot of these people who are close to Jordan, but then throughout this controversy had less and less access to Jordan just because he was traveling and so busy and doing so many interviews, you start to experience this person that that you typically have face-to-face conversations with through tweets and through bite-sized interviews. And as you said, for someone who has 3-day conversations, it's very difficult to truly understand where he's coming from when it's in a tweet and when it's in these articles, which often portrayed things in a very negative light. And so, that's how you're receiving what he's doing. So
the relationship, the dynamic of their relationship shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Right, those friendships.
And they were never able to talk it out.
Mm-hmm. One last idea I wanted to present and hear your thoughts on. You have these two communities in the movie. the supporters of Jordan Peterson and those who are opposed, and you do bring Bernie and other voices, but very strongly in the movie is the transgender community. One of the things I noticed is that the two communities look very different. I mean, partly by age demographic, partly simply in piercings, body piercings, tattoos, colored hair. From a Kabbalistic perspective, I was interested in that because the largest organ in the body is the skin. And the word for that is R. But the word for light is also R. They're spelled differently. The word for skin is spelled with the letter Ayin, which means I. And the word for light with the letter Aleph, which is one God. And the teaching is you have to meditate on your physical existence in order to access move through it. It's like a porous membrane, just like the skin, to access your essence. And I am interested in, the spread of tattoos and shifting our outsides. It seems to me that the skin is not functioning as a container. And at a psychological level, that people are feeling uncontained, which brings me back to this notion of the free speech debate. How much do you open, how much you can't be completely open. I remember I have twins. When they were 3 months old, one had such chickenpox that he was like hours away from being hospitalized. You have to contain the skin. And it just seemed to me that this particular community was attempting to self-contain as a pushback to absence of containment. And that Dr. Peterson was providing some mental constructs that actually could contain, and yet they pushed them away.
I guess I look at this through the lens of personality types. Jordan has done research on the link between personality types and political orientation, and the differences in personality types of people who tend to be more right-leaning and people who tend to be more left-leaning. And people who are left-leaning are very high in openness, so they tend to be more of the artists tend to be on the left wing, and that's where you're going to see the people with blue hair and piercings. You're very open. You want to explore. You want to play. You don't want to have those limits and those borders, whereas people who tend to be more right wing, they like having those borders. I mean, literally, in a country, and they like to have the rules and for people to follow the rules and for things to be more contained. And the left is the resistance.
I once did a class, Why the Left is Right and the Right Left. And what it was about is that based on the tree of life, the right side is about openness and the left side is about boundaries. And the first emotional attribute is called chesed, or loving kindness. It's about being open and including. And the left, gevura, restraint and respect, is about setting up boundaries internally and socially. And the colors that are associated with them, so they're, the Democrats, let's say, would be associated with the right because it's openness, but they're on the Kabbalistic tree. But the color is blue. And the color of restraint and respect is red. So, my point was they got the colors right, but the orientation wrong. But that is what happens. There's a soul type and you have your soul print, and then that shows up in terms of political orientation, because it's all a reflection of something at a higher level or a very deep level is going to show up in how we manifest in the world.
Well, the interesting thing about the left and right being categorized that way with the tree is with the brain, the left side of the brain is where the categorization happens, and the right side of the brain is where it's more of that openness, creativity.
And the right is controlling the left and the left the right. So there is an interplay. One of the things I loved about the film is just we are a global community. We are a community. And let's listen to each other. Let's try and get into each other's head, which I felt you did the most wonderful job. of.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Patricia. For those of you who are interested, this is the, let me just see if I can see myself. This is the image from the movie, the flyer. You can look for it. You said Amazon, iTunes, and
Vimeo on demand, Google Play. If you go to our website, riseofjordanpeterson.com, we've got them all listed there.
it's Rise of Jordan Peterson.
riseofjordanpetersonfilm.com.
Right, that's it. riseofjordanpetersonfilm.com, everyone, and really thought-provoking, subtle, layered. I loved it, and I think that you will too. Go check it out. And Patricia, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great speaking with you today.